Today I fucked up by telling me zookeeper girlfriend, 22 female, not to worry so much about her hygiene. I, 25 have been dating this woman for a few months now, and honestly we get along really well. About a month ago, I met her for dinner one night at a semi-fancy restaurant around 6 p.m. She arrived a little bit late, and was really apologetic saying, "Oh gosh sorry. I probably smell so funky right now. I tried my best to wash and scrub but I know it wasn't enough." She was pretty stinky. She works as an animal caretaker at the zoo and had to stay late that night, so I understood. That night was the first night I really noticed her stinking of animals. It was strong at the same table, something between old fish and a ferret cage, yuck, and rather unappetizing, but not the sort of thing you could smell across the room, so I saw no reason it should ruin the dinner. So I tried to reassure her and said, "Ah no you don't." She said, "Oh don't lie, there's no way I smell okay right now." So I said, "I mean I guess there's a slight smell, but it just shows you worked hard. I've never been one of those weak stomach guys who's going to complain about that. I really don't mind, honest. I'm used to animal smells anyway." To my surprise her eyes lit up and she said, "Wow, really, you're serious?" That's so reassuring to hear, and starting opening up about how hard it was to make sure she always smelled good. That she'd often have to scrub for half an hour after work to even be somewhat presentable, and sometimes even that wasn't enough. Changes of clothes and boots. That she had to sometimes pick which days to schedule dates with me or run errands based around her off days, or which animals she'd be working with that day, to make sure the stink wasn't too bad. I said, "Wow, I had no idea it was that tough." I asked how other keepers dealt with it and she said most were single or dated within the profession and it was rare to find someone like me who genuinely didn't mind. So I reassured her that yeah, she doesn't need to be overly concerned about that with me. I could tell it meant a lot to her. But I think this turned out to be a big mistake. Over the past month, we've seen each other more often, and she's usually smelled okay, but there have been 4 or 5 occasions where she smelled horrible. 10-20x worse than that night in the restaurant. These have been house dates and not at restaurants, etc. I have to breathe lightly to even try to stomach it, and it really kills my mood and leaves my house reeking. Too long did not read. Told my girlfriend she didn't have to worry about her smell so much. She took it as a major green flag due to her line of work. Now I either have to really let her down or resign myself to living in olfactory hell. So, what I'm hearing, is that once you're nose blind, you can have your pick of hot zookeepers. You need to find just the right strain of COVID to wreck your nose but not you. I once had to help out at a zoo on a hot August day, building a fence for a new animal enclosure. I happened to be working about 30 feet from the perimeter of the tiger exhibit. At one point, the tiger crouched down near the perimeter, and dropped a huge, wet poo. I laughed at the sight and kept working. Until 5 seconds later and the stench hit me. It was the single worst thing I've ever smelled in my life by a mile. Instantly puked. I had no idea it was even possible for something to stink like that. Thankfully they let us take a break, waited for a zookeeper to clean it up, and 10 more minutes for the area to air out. No one should be expected to deal with zoo stink. IDK man, seems to me that she's a keeper. Today I fucked up by accidentally introducing my neighbor's 7-year-old daughter to Cradle of Filth. First of all, for the younger users among us or anyone who may not be familiar with Cradle of Filth, they're an extreme metal band who were popular in the 1990s among certain sects of the metal community. Now, let me set the scene. This afternoon I was settling down in my flat here in Swindon, England after a long and exhausting morning spent helping my brother with some painting and decorating at his new house. I decided to put on one of my favorite albums of all time, which happens to be by Cradle of Filth. Not feeling like wearing headphones, I decided to instead connect my phone to my Bluetooth speaker. With Bluetooth successfully connected, I went to Spotify and put on the album. The opening track, a particularly brutal composition of dark, growling, scary, good old-fashioned extreme metal, began to play. Strange, I thought. I noticed the sound seemed to be particularly quiet and muffled in spite of my speaker being turned all the way up. So I ramped the volume on my phone all the way up to maximum, and finally the music was of reasonable volume. Still pretty muffled though, so I began to suspect my speaker was starting to wear out and in need of replacement. I laid back on my sofa and cracked open a drink. I was knackered from my busy morning and in dire need of some rest. About 2 minutes or so into the song, it suddenly cut out and I heard a loud wailing coming from my next-door neighbor's flat, followed by, "Mummy, Daddy," and some panicked cries. Worried, I put my ear to the wall to try to hear what was going on, and although I couldn't make out every word, I heard the little girl telling her parents that some scary noises suddenly started coming out of her speaker and that she couldn't turn it off. My heart immediately sank as I realized what had happened. Turns out when connecting my phone to Bluetooth I hadn't selected my speaker at all, but somehow accidentally connected to the speaker belonging to my neighbor's sweet, innocent 7-year-old daughter. The crying and wailing continued for a good 20 minutes afterwards, as her parents desperately tried to console her. Eventually, by the sounds of it, they were successful in doing so. Am I going to go next door to explain and apologize? Maybe someday. But that day certainly isn't today. Today will be dedicated to digging myself a hole in which to hide in shame for the next 10 years. If anyone's curious as to what the offending song was, here it is. Now just imagine this song suddenly and completely unexpectedly blasting out in a 7-year-old girl's bedroom at an almost deafening volume. Oh man, I'm never living this one down. Too long did not read. I accidentally connected to my neighbor's Bluetooth speaker instead of my own, and scared the life out of their 7-year-old daughter with an extreme metal song. LMAO, a certain sect of the metal community. Just admit you like vampires bro, no one is gonna judge ya. Edit. Laughing my ass off. I'm glad 500 other people had the same laugh I did. It's not a real cradle of filth, is it? Am I going to go next door to explain and apologize? Maybe someday. Play dumb. Here's what you do. Out of nowhere, play some death metal in your flat super loud for a few seconds, stomp around your flat, cursing loudly, and then suddenly shut it off. Continue cursing loudly, this damn thing. Where is that coming from? The next day, knock on their door. Sorry to bother you, but I think some kids are getting into my Bluetooth speaker and blasting this horrible music. I'm about to throw this speaker out because I don't know how to stop it. Oh really? You've had the same problem?